Nice.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.
Chris, did you know which chant that was?
That was My Krishna's Blue, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Tahil, was that right?
Sorry?
Is that correct, or was that?
Yeah, yes, that's
good.
true.
Good.
Paying attention. Yeah, good. Welcome everybody to another episode of Minute 35 of Awake, Minute by Minute, with myself, Chris, Priyank, and Mike. As per usual, Priyank and Mike, I'll come to you guys in a moment, but we do have a special guest with us today, Tahil. If I'm pronouncing your name right, sorry, Tahil.
Yeah, that's okay.
Great. Tahil, glad you've joined us. Maybe you can give yourself a quick introduction.
Well, I'm Tahil. I'm from Argentina, Buenos Aires. I'm a musician. I'm studying music. Well, I was born in the path, so I have a family of devotees of Yogananda, and I'm so happy about that.
Very nice.
And what was the musical instrument that you so kindly played for us?
This instrument,
Yes.
that's a hulushi. It's a Chinese instrument, like a flute.
Nice. And it's got two. It's very unusual. I don't think I've seen anything quite like that. It's got two vessels at the front on like a flute.
Yeah. You can play more than one sound. Like, for example, something like this. You can play like 3 flutes at the same time.
Cool.
Where did you pick that instrument up?
My godfather gave it to me as a gift.
And I mean, I've got to ask. I'm curious about this. Where did you learn? You know, who taught you that? Was it your godfather again?
I don't know too much about this instrument. At the first time, I tried to play like this, and the friend discovered that about these two other things, because at the first time I played just as a normal flute, and suddenly a friend did like this, and there are more sounds.
For
Awesome.
anybody who isn't watching on YouTube, it's an instrument with three. How would you describe it, Tahil? You
3 windpipes.
3 windpipes, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes,
And
but here in America, North America, there were Indians that had flutes like with 3 sounds at the same time.
Yeah,
like Korean. So it's not only there in China.
yeah. No, great. Good to have you on board. And you said you were born into the path. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background with SRF?
Well, that's all. I was born here, and my family invited me to be part of the path and to meditate. They told me a lot of good things about that, but they never said me you have to do that or like this. So that's one of the things, because of how to say it. I'm happy to be here and to have chosen to be here. And of course, when I was a child, I used to talk with to feel Gurudeva as a friend and everything. But of course, when I was a teenager, I started to think everything again and say, do I believe on this? Do I think about that? And I re-choose on it again, like to say, yes, I want that. That's what gives me happiness.
Nice. Did you get initiated into Korea?
Yeah. Yes, like in 2015. No, wait. I don't really know. Like 5 years ago. I don't know.
Okay.
Or
Nice.
2000.
I don't know so much about years with the pandemic.
Yeah, true. I like what you just said, that you like chose it again at some point, the path.
Yes.
I also grew into an SRF family, and when people hear that, they often think, oh yeah, it's automatic. You became you had no choice, but of course you always have a choice, right? And at some point you have to make it your own, and that's very good. What is the situation like in Buenos Aires with SRF? Is there like a big center with a lot of devotees, and are there like Sunday services, and how does it
Well,
work?
yes, we have a lovely temple. It's not like a big a big flat, or it's not like a temple, but it's a lovely house with where we can meditate, and we talk about everything, and we well, yes, it's a really lovely temple with a lot of lovely people that all the time inspire you to
Fantastic.
live life and everything.
Do you have the monks come to visit sometimes?
Yeah, yes, they usually come, like, I don't know, one per year, once per year.
The
Uh,
Spanish speaking monks come, right?
Yes, for example, Icananda, he's Argentinian, so he comes a lot of times, and but there
Yeah, he's
also
great.
here also came Anilananda once, and a lot of monks.
Nice.
And the Awake minute by minute documentary, what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Did you enjoy it when it first came out? Have you watched it more than once? Have you watched it as a family?
You're talking about the film?
Oh yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. I really enjoyed it. It was nice. I wanted to see a lot more about Master when he was a child, but yes, I really love it.
The Take Two Awake, the backstory to Awake. Then, so there's so much material, and we on this podcast always surprise ourselves whenever we're kind of preparing, going through minute by minute, thinking, okay, well, here's the content. Maybe it might be a shorter podcast, but we always try to struggle to keep it within the 1 hour for each and every minute of the analysis, and the conversations can really go in deep because the depths of the information provided are so great on the documentary. So I'll give a quick overview then of this minute. It's minute 35. So for anybody listening, that they can go back and check that minute out. And here we have, one main theme, and it's reality. What is reality? And we have Andrew Newberg, who's a medical doctor. I think he's appeared before on the minute, so we've talked a little bit about him in past minutes. He's a neuroscientist, and he talks about dreaming and reality. What is the real reality? And if you wake up from a dream, you might have been engrossed in that dream, but you quickly realize, oh, I'm awake now. It was just a dream. But when we have mystical experiences, they might seem more real than the reality that we live in our day-to-day waking moments. And then we have a narrator in Yogananda's narrating that talks about more of the practices that we know through meditation and self-realization fellowship of using life currents in the spine, and the technique of Om as well. So we'll cover all of these. There's obviously quite a lot in there to talk about. I think we'll start with the first subject really that's there, and that's reality. And it's something, I guess, it's fair to say that being SRF devotees, we've all considered what is reality, what is this world that we're in, this conscious reality. And I wanted to come to each of you and see what analogies you might be able to give, like on reality. One of the best analogies I've heard is the projection, and it is what Yogananda talks about a lot. So I'm going to use his and say the cinematic projection is what essentially we're experiencing, this play with light and shadows, and we're characters on a screen. and that projection of consciousness is really what we're experiencing. So we're light beings and so on and so forth. That really struck a chord with me when I heard that, when Yogananda talked about that. Priyank, I'll come to you first. What's your idea of reality, and what's an analogy that might help anchor these concepts in your mind?
So I'll revert to a poem that I used to have on my wall as a child. And the poem said, "What if you slept? And what if in your sleep you dreamed? And what if in your dream you went to heaven and there plucked a strange and beautiful flower? And what if when you awoke you had the flower in your hand? Ah, what then?" Now, I had this, it's quite like a romantic and silly poem. I don't know what you think about that, but I had it, this was when I was like 15 or 14, and before I started doing any meditation, and I just printed it out, and I used to just stare at this poem and just recite it. And I was just thinking, like, it makes so much more sense to me now after I've come into this, path, and I've thought much more about the illusory, the Maya, the illusory nature of reality. And it is an illusion, isn't it? So that physical flower that you see in your hand is, as you just said, just a projection. It's not really real. But that doesn't mean that flower, and I've got a very nice picture that I just printed out, actually. This is from my magazine, RS, Royal Society for the Protection of Bird magazine. And in that, it doesn't stop the flower from being beautiful in the sense evoking an emotion or a sensory reaction. So like we can still feel that the flower is beautiful, or smell that it is beautiful, or touch it and it's soft and it makes us feel nice. That is real. The consequence of the dream is real for us. So like if we have a nightmare, we suffer, we sweat, and we really we feel like it was a bad feeling. So that's real. The dream was fake, but the feeling and the impact of it is real. And I think this is where the fine line is for us, because even though we understand it to be nothing but a show of light and play, the consequence is very real. And this is why we have to really meditate on this and realize that we have to work hard to get beyond this, the impact, the fruits or the feelings.
Yeah, good sharing of a poem. It's almost like you had that prepared. That's fantastic.
I had it since I was 14. Just for this moment.
Yeah, premonition. One day. Michael, we'll come to you next. What's your take on reality? Do you have something that really encapsulates it to your mind?
I like the comparison of the dream, and like Guruji, he talks about this a few times, right? And he turns it around. He says, like, imagine you wake up from a dream and then you go like, oh, it's just a dream. But in reality, this whole life is just a dream. He says, like, we're not a material being having a spiritual dream. We are a spiritual being having a material dream. And he's like, it doesn't work the way that you just wake up and it's over, but we keep doing this over and over again. We're in this cycle, but we start figuring it out. The more we dream, the more we figure it out what we are doing. There's a short paragraph that I want to read from Man's Eternal Quest that is describing it a little bit, and says, like, man is playing at life like a child, but his mind grows stronger through fighting sickness and troubles. Anything that weakens your mind is your greatest enemy, and whatever strengthens your mind is your haven. Laugh at any trouble that comes. The Lord has shown me that this life is but a dream. When you wake up, you will remember it only as a dream of joy and sorrow that has passed. You will know you are everlasting in the Lord. And that kind of feeling that when you wake up, it's only a dream, I feel like that's what we will have one day when we come out of this.
Yeah,
that I really like, Mike. I really like that that section where we're astral beings and we're dreaming that we're in the physical physical world, or whatever the words were. So if you do share that, we'll make that the bio for this. We'll put that in the bio for this episode.
Sure.
Epic. I wish I had the whatever is weakening my mind is anyways. Are mosquitoes that I'm trying to flap away furiously at the skull of the strength? I don't know. Are they my enemy, or are they going to help me in the long term? Dael, what's your take on this concept?
Well, I think that it's important to understand that all is illusion, but if you don't have the other part that is God and the real joy, it's like I don't know. I have so much friends that understand that the world is illusion, but they just see that and say, oh, so everything is bad, anything is real. So if you understand that this isn't real, but you don't have the other thing that is real, maybe you can get depressed, or I don't know. And like in my nature, I don't think really seriously about the war and my life. And sometimes it's necessary also. Like, for example, the other day I read about Ananda Moy that said about the young man that wanted to be monks, that they said like, I don't have goals in life because everything is illusion and it's like a dream. And he said, no, you don't have to think like this. You have to think it as a game, but really play the game. And it's difficult, like, to be in the middle, not suffering the struggles of life, but also thinking seriously, like having goals and responsibilities.
It's a really good point, because often I think there's a fine line between walking a spiritual path with, grounding and getting kind of drifting away from the physical and becoming aloof, and this, I've been on some spiritual high horse or something, right? And because it is a difficult concept to grapple with. It, if this world is an illusion of sorts and a projection, what does it matter? And you can get very detached and fall out of love with this reality. A couple of things came to mind is Yogananda says, be in this world but not of it. And another thing is God is everything and no thing. And if God is literally everything and nothing, and you have, you either love everything, or as Sadhguru also talks about, is you can reach God, through love of everything or hate of everything. And, you kind of have to be super committed to it, in a sense, from what I understand. But it can be quite difficult to grapple with this illusion. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And one thing I suppose that we're coming to terms with more and more as the decades go by, with science, dissecting this reality, molecule by molecule, atom by atom, we're seeing, we've talked about it in previous minutes, where we're seeing some sort of convergence, where, the father of quantum mechanics talks about all minds are one. And I was doing some searching through the autobiography of a yogi, and I found this little paragraph on this. I'll read out. The existence of a superconsciousness mind has long been recognized philosophically, being in reality the oversoul spoken of by Emerson, the poet. But only recently has it been recognized scientifically. The French scientists pointed out that from the superconsciousness come inspiration, genius, moral values. Belief in this is not mysticism, though it is recognized and valued the qualities which mystics preached. And so I just wondered what your opinions were. Open to the floor. You could answer or none. Choose whatever you want. What's your view then with modern science, and do you think we're coming to some kind of convergence with mysticism and Western science?
To me, or
Yeah, everyone,
Or
jump in.
I can go. Convergence is like a really, I feel like that's a bit too much, because I think that would mean that they would catch up with each other, and I don't think that will ever happen. But it's like you just read, there's always this cosmic spark, and I feel like a great composer gets his creative vibes from a higher realm. So also does a scientist, you know, when he's trying to figure out, scientists basically, they are trying to out how this world works, make sense of it, write it down, right? Put it into language that we understand. And at some point, people, they have a really good connection, maybe with the astral plane or some higher realm, and then it kind of comes to them through their intuition, I'm guessing, cosmic spark, and then it kind of comes down like this. I feel like even if we knew that this happens, like I think us four, we really strongly believe that things happen like that. I don't feel like that by knowing that it will all converge and you can like lift our lives to a completely spiritual plane, because you still depend on kind of those cosmic sparks coming in, and I feel like they come in when you the more you are going inward.
And Priyank, what's your take? You're an engineer. Do you think that science will come to convergence with?
I think it might do. So as Mike was saying that, I think that it might do, but not in a way that it's expressible and understandable for masses. So, for example, a paper won't be written in scientific formula terms where this is what consciousness is, and then everyone can be like, oh yeah, that's obvious. Like Einstein, for example, may have had the idea very well formulated in his mind, consciousness and universal consciousness and how that can be defined, but putting that on paper, that isn't just poetry or like scripture as we know it, but actual like maths is not, it's just 10 million steps too far for science, isn't it? So I think scientists and poets and artists, we said in the past, have been in touch with this, and they've conceptualized it, and in a way that they've discovered it, but they haven't been able to put it down on a piece of paper, such as Guruji does.
Very good.
I was remembering about a film that was called something like The Man That Knew the Infinite. And
Infinity,
it was about,
yes.
Yeah.
Ramanujan.
Yeah,
yes.
That one. That maybe he knew the answer, but he didn't know the process to get there. So the other people didn't understand how he could know that things, and maybe he was meditating and suddenly he got those answers.
Go on. No, please carry on.
But I don't remember what I was going to say.
Okay. I was saying Ramanujan, he said, he was saying that they said he never used to show his derivation for the work. So he used to have the end equation, and it would be really very profound, and they couldn't go back to how he got to this. And he used to say in his notebooks and stuff, or in his diary, or to people, like, oh, it's just obvious, it just comes to me, the equation just drops out of some super conscious ether.
Yes, that's true. Well, maybe in art it's more normal, like to let the composer to don't explain how he got there, but in science it's quite different.
Dahil, you are a composer, so tell us how an artist in music would be able to express this.
Could you repeat the question?
So like Beethoven and Mozart, like some of these artists were deaf, but they were able to compose these works of art, and the music and the composition is like, it's hard to imagine how someone can write such music, but it's there, it's written, and it moves us so much, even if it's hundreds of years old. The melody is still somehow connected we can connect to it. So perhaps you can describe your experience in that, because you're in that field. You are a composer, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know what to say, but yes, sometimes you listen to a great composer, like I don't know, like Debussy, and you say, "Whoa, how how he can express such these depth feelings." And maybe if you analyze it, like you can copy everything, but you aren't going to create the same thing. Rules, like Debussy used to say that great composers, I don't know the word, but great art things made rules, but rules can't make good art things. Like you can't copy the rules and get something that's like
very nice.
Like a photocopy.
Very nice. I think was it Mozart? He had a starling as a pet, right? And I think how he had it was that he was writing a piece of music, and he was struggling with some part of it, and starlings are famous for copying your whatever you're playing, and they'll sing it. And so it was outside and it was listening, and it would just repeat what Mozart was playing, and it actually corrected something, one of the notes it corrected. And so Mozart was like, what is this bird is correcting my music. And so then he captured the bird, and I've forgotten what the style is. We can look it up, but it was actually apparently like 100 years in music composition terms. It was like 100 years ahead of its time in terms of music. And so he got this bird and he kept it as a pet, and he would play music, and then, like, apparently when the bird died, Mozart was so sad that he actually had a funeral and invited all the people for it, because he was that sad about it.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Look it up.
The bird funeral is a famous story. I knew that part. I didn't know it would correct his music.
Yeah. That's why he took it in, or he made sure that he captured it. Like,
there you go, Tayal. You're going to have to get a bird to start correcting. I
used to have a bird. Well, he used to come to the window, that window, and he used to, I don't know how to say, to crash to the
crash into the window
all the time. And I don't know to say how, like, to admire him because of its behavior, because he was really, I don't know how to say, like,
determined.
Yes, that he was really determined, but he also was a bit stubborn, because every day, what it happened one year, and at the next year, at the next spring, he appeared again, and well, this time he didn't appear again, but he was like a friend. But he used to wake me up at the morning. It was funny.
Get up and meditate. Maybe it was Yogananda.
It was lovely, but quite boring.
I hear birds in the background. I think that's Chris, right?
I don't think so. I don't think it is me. I hear it as well. It could be. I've got my headphones on.
Yeah. Probably is.
I think it is you, Chris. You're the only one that's in the jungle.
Well, we've got somebody in Buenos Aires, so it's equally as tropical, I imagine.
Concrete jungle.
Concrete jungle, a little bit, yeah. Guys, that thought came to me about the nature of this reality, and how commonly we might perceive it. It's through our senses, right? And it's through our senses do we perceive reality, and we typically associate our senses through the five senses. But I wanted to read out a little bit in the autobiography of Yogi, just as a talking point. Some of the really mystical aspects of the autobiography of Yogi really is what caught my attention. when I was reading it and thought, this is just wisdom and knowledge pouring from these pages. One aspect of this was on page 241, I think. And I'll read it out quickly here. Where Yogananda is talking about the astral body. And the astral body is an exact counterpart of the last physical form. Astral beings retain the same appearance which they possessed in youth in their previous early reincarnation. I think this is sojourn. Occasionally, an astral being chooses, like myself. Sorry, this isn't Yogananda then. Somebody correct me on this as I continue to read. To retain his old age appearance. I think this is Sri Yukteswar. Master, emanating the very essence of youth, chuckled merrily. So yeah, Sri Yukteswar talking to Yogananda. And interestingly, he talks then about the astral form in more detail. Unlike the spatial, three-dimensional physical world cognized only by the five senses, the astral spheres are visible to the all-inclusive sixth sense, intuition. By sheer intuitional feeling, all astral beings can hear, see, smell, taste, touch. They possess three eyes, two of which are partially closed. The third and chief astral eye, vertically placed on the forehead, is open. Astral beings have their outer sensory organs, but they employ the intuitional sense to experience sensations through any body part, so they can see through their ear or nose or so on. And this really is just one of the short stories then that you're going to be sharing with us that Sri Yukteswar talks about, that makes me think the nature of reality is so vast and complex and beautiful. And we could talk about that, but guys, in terms of mystical experiences that in the minute are suggested to be potentially more real than this reality, have any of you guys, Priyanka, have you had a mystical experience that you felt was more real and you came back to this reality thinking, damn, I'm in a dream? Has that actually occurred to you?
I was just listening to the convocation talk by Brother Kamalananda. He gave a talk on the Om, on revising the Om technique, and he talked about the astral sounds that can be heard in the technique, and the association with the chakras, and in comparing those sounds. I know we obviously can't talk about the technique, but in comparing those sounds to the gross sounds that we have when we're listening to music or listening to reality, it feels like what we hear here is very gross. It's heavy compared to the subtle and more beautiful inner sounds. So I can certainly relate to that. I don't know if you'd call that a mystical experience, but I can certainly relate to what Yogananda was saying just there. And that section where he talks about in the astral world you can use any body part to connect to any sense is just mind-blowing, isn't it? It really talks about the universal nature of like our sensory perception and how we're so limited in this physical life in this compared to our real selves.
Have you ever smelt a sound? Have you ever seen a smell? Has that ever occurred to you, Tal, when you're playing your music? Have you ever tasted the notes?
No, but there were composers that said that they had like synesthesia, like they could see with colors the note. Are they called the notes? No, how would you say do re mi notes?
Yeah.
Well, and there were two composers that sell the same colors to the same notes, so I know what they were singing.
Interesting.
I've heard this as well.
They were like, yeah, I know, it's interesting.
It's crazy, isn't it? And I think our chakras have a color associated with them as well. So that,
Yes.
and some chakras are no doubt connected to some musical notes. So it's all must be connected somehow.
Maybe yes.
All vibration. Mike, have you ever had an experience that's made you question this nature of reality?
Not enough. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here anymore.
Yeah. Maybe inclinations. Well,
but I want to add to what Priyank said about how limited we are. Like even in this gross world here, our bodies, they, like for example, when we talk about light, we talk about the visible spectrum, right? The kind of light waves that we can see, and everything higher or lower in frequency we can't see, and that is a lot. So the visible spectrum doesn't cover even half of it. So it's like most of the light that's out there we cannot see. Most of the sounds that are out there we cannot hear. So our body, it's great that we have those senses, but they are not very refined. They're very gross, even compared to what would be possible in this world. And I'm not sure, I don't want to start talking about the US again, but maybe this will this will change throughout the ages, but at the moment it's like that. And I'm sure there is more beauty possible to perceive even here. And I'm guessing the beauty you can see in the astral plane must be really hard to imagine for us right now.
Sri Yukteswar was telling Yogananda on the same page in the autobiography of a yogi about festivals, big parties in the astral plane, on the higher astral planes like Hiranyakola. They take place when a being is liberated from the astral world through the spiritual advancement and is therefore ready to enter the heaven of the causal world. So that, I mean, imagine, having a kind of, going away party in the astral plane from astral to causal, and the musical notes that would be up for tasting and viewing and hearing. It would be pretty spectacular, and one can only imagine. But amazing. I just find it so beautiful that these stories are shared with us. Yogananda is quite cautious with sharing spiritual stories and things like that. But these have been shared with us to entice us, I would suggest, to show us that there's more to reality than the pain and suffering maybe that is so commonplace in this physical world, and gives me great hope. We've talked about dreams quite a bit, I think, on this podcast, on previous minutes. So I don't want to go into too much detail, but Tayal, maybe you could share with us if you've had any seemingly real dreams. I think we've shared one or two in the past, some past comments, so we'll not go into it. But Tayal, have you, on the topic of dreams, had any particular very real, vivid dreams that maybe are reoccurring, anything like that?
No, not so much. I don't have so vivid dreams. I always have like dreams into dreams into dreams. So I wake up in the dream and suddenly I wake up again and again, and I was like in the dream of the dream of the dream. But
you've fallen into
more this kind of dreams.
Inspection, or is it the movie Inspection? Is that it? Leonardo DiCaprio. Good movie. So yeah, I think that's right. So we maybe more. Go ahead, Kyle.
No. That maybe I love to meditate like in a landscape or in a place with nature. It's like, for example, when they tell you like to feel that you are one with the world, it's difficult to feel it if you are into a house with cement and a wall. So I don't know. I really appreciate. I really love to meditate in nature, and sometimes you don't know if you are imagining or not, but you start to feel like you are part of the place. You are part of nature. You feel like the bird is part of you, but I don't know. It's it's like a feeling, but not like, oh, wow. But it's really, really wonderful.
Yeah.
Like to feel you are part of nature.
Yeah, yeah. We talked about that in previous minutes again, you know, with being sitting with trees, you know, that's often talked about, and how that might sort of help root you into the meditation. The other aspect that's talked about in this minute, it's a topic that would take some time, but we'll try to cover it in some succinct detail. And that's in Yogananda's words, talking about the life currents ascending and descending in the spine. And really a meditation technique using Om to mentally chant Om as you go up and down the spine, and the life currents, you know, mixing with you know, in the central nervous system, is stuff that we've talked about before, and obviously as Self-Realization Fellowship devotees will have, you know, followed the lessons and understood this technique to a good degree. But Yogananda specifically talks here about the body and the brain that can be purified by this technique. You know, Priyank, what's to be understood here? What needs to be purified about the body and the brain, and what do you think Yogananda means here?
Firstly, the body is gross, so it picks up toxins and like deoxygenated blood. So in energization, for example, we bring in the prana and rejuvenate ourselves, so we can see that how that impacts us in our body, and we can feel it straight away. If, for example, with the healing technique, when we rub our hands together, we can feel the energy that's, you know, we're generating. And similarly, when we rotate our hands, we can feel that energy. So we can bring in this energy, and we can choose what to do with it. So with the body, it's quite obvious, like, you know, you can feel tensions relax. You can feel your, you know, if you sit straight, you can feel your posture is making a difference to your whole physical space. Everyone corrects their posture.
Right.
Yes, but
Good
but the brain is much more subtle. And, you know, we practice Kriya, or if you don't have Kriya, you practice the Hong So or the Om technique, or whichever meditation technique you practice, but it's much more subtle. And the purification, if you really want to, if you can't see the impact, but you want to see the impact, just compare yourself to how you were 1 year ago, and then see, you know, how calm are you now compared to what you were 1 year ago. This is if you've been practicing meditation, you know, and some practice every day. You have to do it every day. You have to do it like clockwork. Otherwise, you can't expect to feel, you know, tangible results, because that's not the way life works. You have to work for something to, you know, get a result. So yes, compare yourself, like how calm are you, how connected are you to God and gurus, how devotional are you. Compare yourself to 1 year ago and see how you're different or how you've changed. Compare yourself to like 10 years ago, and you should really be able to see the difference. So this is not just, you know, these things don't just happen. Like, many people will just live their whole lives in the same routine, in the same mental structure. They won't actually improve themselves. But we're on this path and we're on this journey. Like, you know, even simple things like how, you know, your relationships with your close ones, how has that evolved? You know, is it rooted in selfishness? Is it rooted in selflessness, you know, giving, and see how that changes. And so you can see how it's impacted your brain and your mind in that sense. It's not so, otherwise it's not so obvious how to compare or how to see what the impact is.
Is that your take on this? Mike.
Oh, Mike. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
Sorry.
I feel like it slowly gives you, like, the more you kind of galvanize the spine and get control of the energy, I feel like life turns from like, I would say, a flight on autopilot into suddenly this autopilot is starting to ask you questions. Do you want to go left or right? Do you want to go up or down? Do you like so? Like I feel like the things that you would usually do automatic because you have all your habits and all your preconceived notions. Suddenly you are more able to lay them out in front of you, and instead you see that you could either do this or that, and which one feels right, and you try to use your intuition, and you try to also use your intellect, and you try to actually maneuver the ship. And I like Guruji describes this similarly to what I was trying to describe right now, but also he describes it in the astral plane. He says once you go into the astral plane and you are not awakened, then the astral plane is like a big sleep for you. You go there and you sleep for some time, and then you incarnate again. And once those higher centers awaken, you are actually awake in this astral plane, and you do things there as well. And this is something that is a sign that you are getting slowly the hang of your energies, but a subtle sign, like hard to interpret. But I feel like that's one analogy.
Nice. Thanks. Good analogy like that, Tael.
Well, I remember like probably it's in the lesson and everything, but I remember listening to about this technique in an Ekananda's meditation service, like in the end of the meditation, and I really love it, and I started to practice it like in the end of my meditations. Well, I really love this technique. Just kidding, but I call it like the toothpaste technique, because you know when you don't have so much toothpaste, you have to like push it up and up. So I think like when you sing and make all your energy to go to this chakra and then to the next chakra, you're like taking all your energy like the toothpaste up and up to the top. But I love like do you see Avatar?
Yes.
The Last Airbender. Well,
The Last Airbender, yeah.
there is a really lovely chapter where there is a guru that
The guru, yeah, that's great.
I think that tell him that chakras that is like I don't know, a waterfall or something like this, and there are like ponds that are chakras, and the water is like stagnant. So if you clear it, if you clean it, the flow the river can flow, but up, not down.
You know, I haven't actually watched that at all, but I have seen a small clip of that exact story that you're saying on YouTube. So that's the only thing I've seen of it. You know, the unblocking of the energies. Great.
It's a cartoon show, but it has amazing spiritual
Yes.
analogies in there. Yeah,
Yes.
very cool.
Nice. You know, it's something that it's easy to kind of skim over, because I think maybe being SRF devotees, maybe we have some kind of grasp of this, but I just want to tease this out a little bit. Life currents. What's Yogananda meaning by life currents here? Can anybody jump in and answer? Tael, you're about to speak.
I'm not really sure what does it mean. What's a word?
Life
Current.
Life cars.
current.
Life currents.
Current.
Yeah, yes, but I don't know what to say. Like
Priyank, or
No.
Mike. Sorry.
Mike.
You're
Mike.
I can make a start. I mean, the life currents, they flow without us knowing about it, right? Like nobody would be alive if he wouldn't be kept alive by the life currents, right? They flow in him. There's like, Guruji explains it, that the energy enters our medulla, right? And then it goes up and down the spine, and from there it gets distributed to the different levels. And it's again about control, right? So there's life force and life force control. That's like pranayama. And that is basically what we need to get the hang of. Like we can move the arm, we can say stuff, we can see things, it all happens automatically. But once the idea is that we take this energy that is being pulled outwards all the time by our senses and by all the sensations that we have, and we tell this energy, stop going out, we withdraw it within into the spine, and then it will have this healing effect of, like Tahir earlier said, make the water flow between the ponds, you know, and stop the blockades. Exactly. And that, I feel like that's kind of the goal when we talk about life currents. That's why we talk about it.
Is it connected to lifetrons, do you think? Yeah, is that sort of what you're going to talk about, the lifetrons behind the electrons and the neutrons and the protons?
Is it connected? Whew, a tough question. My initial everything is connected, obviously, but the I think lifetrons is something much more fundamental than the movement of energy. So, for example, lifetron has, like, you can generate, or you can get lifetrons, little pockets of energy. You know, they can sustain themselves, or they can provide energy from themselves. Whereas prana, you're bringing in energy and, you know, taking it into different parts of your body and limbs through the medulla or the Agna chakra.
Anilananda said in a talk in a chat, he said something about like a Muppet and who is moving this Muppet, like what was the force that make it alive. No.
Yes, that's a good analogy.
Nice.
Cool. And meditation itself, you know, again, we talked about this on the podcast, so we'll not go into major detail, but techniques, we talked about it a couple of podcasts ago, you know, what techniques are there out there? And there's endless techniques, really, because to each person, you're going to have a slightly different method that you might follow to one degree or another. I want to ask the question to the group. Michael, I'll start with you. What was the technique that first worked for you the most?
See, I grew into an SRF family, and I did not get Kriya for a long time. So I got initiated into Kriya when I was 24. And so basically when I grew up, I pretty quickly learned about Hong So and Om technique, but not Kriya. And for me, Om kind of revealed itself to me much later. Even after I had Kriya, I started understanding what Om technique is about, really. But Hong So was from the beginning something that helped me a lot. So that kind of was a lot of the joy I got from my meditation was the calmness I found after practicing Hong So.
Priyank.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Hong So is something that is so simple yet so deep. I think brother Kamalananda, you were saying the Hong So and Om technique, through those techniques alone, you can reach, you know, you can be liberated. So yeah, my experience was the same as Mike's. Hong So, you know, I connected to it straight away in its simplicity, and it's, you know, bringing about peace and tranquility and calming all those restless thoughts and emotions and all the other turmoils that I used to experience, still do experience, but much less so now. Yeah, and Om was an interesting one, actually, because Mike put it in some good words there. It revealed itself to him. That's interesting way of putting it, because no doubt it was always there, but he connected to it later. But that's how it feels. Like, you know, you don't feel that you've changed and become able to receive it. It feels like, oh, it's just come. This was the time it was supposed to come, and it's just come. So it's an interesting way that he worded that, actually.
Kyle.
in my case, my first technique was 20-20-20, like the breathing technique. And I think it's great because it's really easy. You can practice it when you are in the bus and in the school and studying. You can practice it all the time, and you feel like you get really calm. Just practicing a few times. I know.
It's harder to put into practice when you're walking, I find.
Yeah,
Isn't
the
it?
count goes less, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
do
You're like,
you can't
Well,
do 20.
from blue in the face. Like, it's not really hard to be done.
You can adapt it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to adapt
You
it.
have to count faster.
Yeah. How fast can you count? Yeah.
Or you can just do 10, 10, 10. That's what I usually do.
Yeah. Craig, you might remember this. I think one of the early days when I was coming to the SRF London Centre, I think I came in and I just learned the hung saw technique, and I remember saying to you, Priyank, like, it just blew me away when I first did it, and I loved it. It's so simple. It concentrated my mind. It did everything I think what a basic technique, meditative technique, should do. And I think it was Sri Dayama that said the importance of it shouldn't be underestimated, and really, really focus. No matter if you've been practice, Kriya for 20 years, make sure you're doing these techniques correctly. So yeah, very, very inspirational, Frank. You said there, you can realize just with these basic levels, let's say, of God infused meditative techniques that we've been given. So cool, guys. That's really the kind of key questions I've lined up. We talked about meditation. We talked about dreams and reality itself. We flew through it. The minute itself is continuing from the energization technique, and I know we've got a special person to talk about next week who Yogananda worked very closely with. So we'll delve into that more in the next minute. Is there anything else that you would like to cover on this particular minute, Priyank?
Yeah, this minute interesting. It was interesting use of the what's that instrument? Oh gosh, sitar. So if you listen to the piece when they were talking, when Andrew Newberg was talking, and into when Yogananda was talking, sitar was playing in the background, and then there was a class that was happening, or people were just waiting to start a meditation. So the sitar was used quite nicely to like bring the conversation into feeling the life currents ascending and descending, and also the opera singer Amalicha, what's her name, whatever her name was. That's right. Yeah, so she just appeared, but we're going to talk more about her in the next episode.
Mike, anything from you?
I actually wanted to read something about dreams, but I'll keep it for another episode.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, we'll probably be talking about dreams later on.
So. I think so.
Yeah. Kyle, anything, any comments, any reflections?
No, I'm so happy to be here with you. Thanks for the invitation, and I really enjoyed it. Sorry for my bad English.
Your English is really good.
Your English is great. Thank you so much for coming on, Tayo.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully you can join us again when you're a big time composer.
when you're tasting notes.
Yes.
Thank you. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone. Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.